Hey Boo Buddies! Welcome to a special Draw With Me with watercolor video. I am starting with my watercolors and I'm going to be adding the color first and then go back later and form the outline of the drawing. So this is kind of a mixed medium something with doing the color and the light of the image, and then going back later and doing the outline and the defining features. I'm using Winsor Newton watercolor sets and a 1-inch synthetic round brush, and that's really the only brush I'm really going to use throughout the whole painting, except for I go back a little bit to mop up some of the puddles so that I don't get that saturated puddle, and I just use a damp dry brush to mop that up. But for the most part, this is just one nice big brush and then a lot of experimenting with pigment. To get this red, I made a not so well blended puddle on my palette, and I mixed mauve, rose madder, and cardamom red, and to give lots of different reds and purples and texture of color throughout. For the green, I mixed hooker green, yes, that's actually the name of the color, and intense green, and again I didn't blend the puddle very well to add lots of texture, and then it got a little dark, so I go back over with my paper towel and mop some of it up to give that antique-y faded look. And what I really wanted to do with this color is take up as much of the white as possible and a free flowing shape, so there's a distinct shape of what this is going to be without using the paint to define, because the ink will define that later. So now I'm just adding the idea of light and color and less about color on the page that will become the image itself. So the reason I started with the color is this is watercolor paper, and watercolor of course takes water, and the ink would blend. If I did the ink first and then go back over with color, then the ink mixes with the water and everything gets a muddy, not so niceness. So this way it's a bit more free-flowing, it's a bit more experimental, and I like that. If you haven't guessed by now by the title of this video or the color placement on the page, I am making a rose, and I love drawing roses. It's always been one of my favorite drawing exercises since I was very young, and I still find it challenging and relaxing and just oh so satisfying. And I've seen many different takes on how to draw a rose, and if you Google how to draw a rose, I guarantee you'll come across 15 or more different approaches to it, and they're all right, and they're all different, and they're all unique, and I find that so interesting about the philosophy that is drawing roses. So I am using my Tombow hard tip brush pen to shape an idea of petals unfolding, and I always start a rose the way it grows, which is from the center out, and I'm partly letting the shape of the lines that are forming. You'd think I have more control over my pen, but really I'm just following what the ink is doing and kind of tracing in places around what the pigment did, to give a semi-realistic, although this is very abstract, texture and following the color and blossom of this rose. A rose begins tight, wrapped in twisted layers. She is green with a peak of color, a foreshadow of what shall become. As she blooms, she relaxes her back, letting the folds of her petals lay a little more open. She lets out her perfume and flutters her soft petals. If she is fortunate, her wrappings will fall away, and all will see the wild flower she always was meant to be. The desire to paint and draw this rose this week came from a touching conversation and some journaling that I did this week on the subject of the rose and its meaning throughout art and poetry, specifically Shakespeare's sonnet 109. And generally, I'm not really a fan of Shakespeare's. I know it's a weird thing for a girl of so much literary background to say, but I've just never been quite as inspired by him. But something about this week, it really sang into my art. One of the hardest parts of being a creative content creator, be it writing, be it drawing, be it painting, be it any medium of creating something for other people's enjoyment, is knowing when to stop. And I think drawing a rose, especially freeform rose, without a distinct stopping point in mind, is the worst case of that exact problem of you can just keep going and going. And I probably could have filled up this entire page with petals and leaves and thorns, and I just could have taken over the entire paper and created a very different pattern. But I really wanted to force myself to keep this free forming of color and this distinct shape pretty simple in contrast to the overflow of color. Thank you for indulging me in my very different style of Draw With Me video this week. It was really fun to explore new mediums and just free flow ideas onto paper and share with all of you. I hope you all find this inspiring in your own art and journaling, and I will leave you now with the words that inspired it. Never believe, though in my nature reigned all frailties that precede all kinds of blood, that it could be so preposterously be stained, to leave for nothing all thy sum of good. For nothing in this wide universe I call, save for thee, my rose, in thou art my all.